welcome back to my Astro Imaging Journey channel. Today I'm going to go over my workflow for PixInsight. I have I believe around 8 hours of 1 minute subs. That's what is that, about 480 1 minute subs for M103, an open star cluster. So I want to go through my process. I've already sorted through some of these, but I'm going to go through my process of using PixInsight and my workflow, and hopefully this helps you guys out. This is going to be my first test on a full set of 8 hours. That is my goal of getting 8 hours per target. So with that, let's get into it. First, as you can see here, I do have a lot of other targets that I'm capturing off and on. And all the way down here, I've sorted by date. We have M103. And it looks like around 100 or so. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to pull up my, where is it? There it is, my workflow document. As you can see here, it's just a simple Word document. If you're using something else, that's great. Just scrolling through here, you know, we got about, it looks like 12 steps. Let me fix that. And yeah. So it's just a simple document. Most of the stuff is in my head, but it's some good references. And for example, when you got to input the image parameters, since the image train is pretty static, I know that it's a 3.72 for the scale and 1960 for the focal length. So just some little notes to help me get started. So for example here, select 5 stars, 20 is preferred, and you know, they should be between a 0.8 and a 0.2 amplitude, and I'll get into that later. So I've got my document sitting here, and apologies for the, sounds like Kobe's barking at something in the front yard. So the first thing we want to do is blink, or at least the first thing I like to do is blink the images I took. I'm looking for elongated stars, severely elongated stars, tracking issues, meteors, satellites, airplanes coming across, things of that nature. Once I remove those from the image set, then I'm going to go zoom in and I'm going to look again, this time looking for focus issues. So let's open up the blink module. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I have a process icon set. Okay, now let me back up for a second here. A lot of this information that I have comes from various channels that I've compiled into one set that's working for me, at least working for me at this point. That came from Astro Dude, came from Richard Block, came from a couple of presentations on the Astro Imaging channel. All these sources are great for information, so please go check them out if you can, and watch a lot of their tutorials. They'll get a lot more in depth. They'll do some explanations on what these modules are doing, and you know, they're just great sources of information. Especially the guys on the presenters on the Astro Imaging Journey channel, or excuse me, not the Astro Imaging channel. TAC, they they bring on subject matter experts, the guys that either wrote books or in some cases actually wrote the software, to come in and explain different things. So it's great information. Again, Astro Dude has a nice set of tutorials, goes into some detail on what each one does and what it's used for, and it's great sources of information out there. So I'm going to try not to rehash a lot of that since it's already out there, but if I do, please forgive me. So I have here loaded my process icons, and as you can see, use blink, image scoring, batch pre-processing. If I go back to my document, blink, image scoring, batch pre-processing. So I've set up these process icons roughly in the way that I'm going to process my images. It kind of helps with the workflow. So with that, let's get into the blink module and we'll go on. Now if you notice, it says S for script. That means I cannot just double click on this. It's going to bring up this little window and I can't do that. So you would think it's a script, so it should be under script and blah blah blah, but it's not. It's actually under process now, and I like to go to all processes. Some of the other guys like to go into the categories here, but I like to go into all processes because I kind of know where things are, and blink is right there. So let's bring that up. Now I need to import all of my images into there, so I'm just going to move this over here real quick. Down here we have the folder icon, add image files. So we're going to go, and if I had been in a different folder, it would have displayed there, but I am in my SGP data folder with focal reducer subfolder. So I'm just going to highlight and select all of my M103 images. That was just selecting one, selecting the bottom one, holding shift, and then clicking on the top one to select all of them, and then open. And this is going to take a couple minutes. Luckily it's locally on the it's on a local hard drive, so it won't take as long if I had it on my storage server. So we're going to let these open and then be back in a minute. While this is processing the images, just want to explain something. The reason I moved this off to the side is so that I can watch the process console. I believe by default it comes up over here in the upper right, but I have moved it over here to the upper left, and I have moved it to the lower right. Just because with the workflow and the process icons, I like it to be over here, just so I can watch what's going on and it not be over my images and things of that nature. If you noticed, when I took my mouse away, it will go away on its own. I believe there might be a way to have that static there, but then it kind of gets in the way at times. So just keep your mouse over the window and it'll stay there. So just waiting for it to finish up. Alright, and here we have blink calculating statistics is done. So that's the message we want to see right there. So now we're going to come back over here. I like to move this over. And don't worry about this being grayscale. It is that way by design. And if I hadn't already, I would have clicked this little zoom to fit icon here, simply because they like to open up a little bit smaller window, about 2/3 the size of this. And being that I'm a little bit older, and do have to wear glasses, I like to have the images as big as I can. Excuse me. So at this point, I will set this little timer to 1 second, and then I will hit the play button, which I'll do here in a second. And what that does, and again, I know I'm diving into some of the details that I said I probably would try not to do, but I think it's good to understand my workflow and why I'm doing some things. You know, I could just step through, clicking the arrow, but what I like to do is just let it play, and I pick a focal point. So usually in the middle. I do like to hunt, so I am used to staring at one area, in this case where my crosshair is, and using the periphery. I'm not focusing so much on the crosshair as much as I am concentrating on the periphery and looking for something to change. And then so where the crosshair is where I'm going to focus my eyes, but I'm going to concentrate on the outer edges. And then I'm going to keep my hand on the mouse and the mouse over the play animation button, and let's let this cycle through. And all I'm doing, you'll notice it is getting a little bit brighter. That's because the moon was coming out. So I'm getting a little bit of bleed over. Now it's looking like a lot of bleed over. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I like to keep my finger on the mouse and the mouse on that animation button, simply because then as soon as something sticks out, I can click it and stop the animation. As you can see, it got very washed out between the two frames. So we just step back and forth, and yes, that is way washed out. So with that one highlighted and displayed on the screen, I'm going to come down here to the window with the red X, close selected image. I could uncheck it, but the reason I'm doing this is that it removes it from the panel. Okay, so we're going to close that one out. It goes to the previous image. Let me step to the next one. Okay. Still a little washed out, but not as bad. So we're going to start the animation again and see if we find another one. And there's another washed out one, so let's remove that one. Okay, so it looks like we've had several washed out ones. So what I can do in this case is go to my next one. Yes, it's washed out. So I'm going to uncheck box it. But I'm also going to remember this is 002557. Okay. And I'm just going to step through, and you can see why it was washed out. We had some clouds. You can kind of see the banding in here on the left-hand side of the image. Some clouds moved in. All right, so I'm going to uncheck that one. Let me go back to this one, 002557, and then I can hold the shift, select both of those, or all four of those, and then use this double window with the red X. That is close all images. We do not want that one. Be careful. We want to just remove the selected images. And just like that, they're gone. So now we're going to play the animation again and see if we can find some more. Alright, so let's get rid of the last set. Okay, now that was the overview. Again, I'm not too concerned about the whitewashing. I have plenty of data that is darker, and you know, the severely whitewashed is definitely an issue, but most of that should get averaged out, especially after 8 hours of data being collected. So now I've gone back to the top. This was my 1,000 foot or 50,000 foot overview. So now I'm going to zoom in, not real tight, but tight enough. And what I'm going to look for is out of focus stars and elongated stars. Severely elongated stars. Like this one looks a little elongated, but they all look to be pretty decent. And then you can see here where my crosshairs are. Looks like I have some hot pixels. There's 3 of them right there, maybe a 4th. But as I play the animation, you may have seen in the other, with it zoomed out, the stars are moving around. I am using dithering, so those will definitely get averaged out in the end. So I'm not overly concerned with those being there, but if I start seeing way too many of those, maybe time to get a new camera. So let's play and see if we find anything. Okay, as you can see, something happened with tracking here. You get these double star looking things. That's why I like to zoom in, because I didn't notice it in the other view. It would probably get averaged out if I left it there, but I have plenty of data, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove that one. Now, if you notice here, I'm looking at, see how the stars get bloated? That's clearly clouds or a seeing issue, so I can remove that one as well. All right, so now we have all of the frames that I don't like removed from the list, and this is why I remove them, or I clear them from the list, because now I can go in and select the first one, scroll down. I haven't had the greatest luck using the scroll bar and keeping the top one highlighted. For some reason, it may just be a display bug. So I use the old scroll bar here on the side, go to the bottom, select them all, and now I want to move. So it'll be this little folder and file icon with the arrow. Move them to a new location. Now I could copy them. I could use this copy here, the little floppy disk icon, copy. But since I'm putting these on my storage server, I'm just going to go ahead and move them. So then we go up here. So my storage server, it's my network attached storage, Astro Imaging, targets with full core reducer, M103, T6i, 1 minute subs, ISO 1600, and blink good. So all my originals, if I had just pushed them up there, I was going to do a blink at a later date and time, I would put the originals right here, and then I would blink them later. Once I do blink them, I move them into this blink good, so that I know that these I've looked at, I'm 95% happy with them. Some of these are a little washed out, but I'm going to consider them good for now. So we're going to select the folder, and I should have moved the blank module off to the side, but as you can see, it's moving 86 files. And once that completes, we will be back. All right, it disappeared, so let me just move this over. Move it over some more. And yes, it's done. If you noticed, I kept my cursor over the window so that it would stay active. And then once it completed, it moved. That's my indicator that it's done. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to close all images. This wipes that clean. So if I decided to go in and so let's look at what we have here. SGP, as you can see, I have NGC 4147 and 1502 and 457. So there's some other targets in there, so at this point I could blink them all and individually per target and move them, which is why I like to clear it out. Also, the next time you do load this, it does save those settings. So if I had left those in there and then closed PixInsight, came back 2 or 3 days later, I'd still have to close them out. So it's just part of my process to clear it, so the next time I open Blink, it's a clean slate. Now, before I move on, I want to explain why I use the NAS. So, yes, it is great to work off the local drive. I do have an SSD drive, so it's extremely fast. And then another terabyte secondary hard drive in here, which is where all the data gets stored to during the imaging session. So could I store everything on here? Yes, I could. But as the targets grow, I need more storage space. And instead of having a ton of external drives and trying to remember what is where, in preparation for this, I purchased a NAS. So let me go to, and I then mapped it right here. Okay. So the partition I'm using, which is for me, is a 9 terabit partition. And as you can see, I'm using roughly 1.5 terabits of data. Now that's video I've taken. That's drone video. There's cell phone video, all different types of videos, pictures, music. I have a bunch of, because I'm older school, so I have CDs laying around the house. I converted them all to MP3s. Some general storage that I need to sort, games I had purchased, digital downloads, documents. So every 1.5 terabit roughly is being used. And if I go in my Astro Imaging, which as you can see, I have my calibration libraries, which is my darks, flats, biases, as well as my targets. That, if we go to properties, let it count up here, we're quickly growing. Okay, so it's finished calculating, and it says it's 271 gigabytes worth of data just in this folder alone. Could I fit that all on a 1 terabyte external hard drive? Of course I can. But with the NAS, this particular NAS, it's a Ready NAS from Netgear. It has 6 3 terabyte hard drives in it, and and they are in RAID 6 configuration. So the nice thing about that is if I just put everything on an external hard drive and that hard drive failed, I lose all this data. I lose all this time. And that can be very frustrating. It's happened to me in the past. And using the NAS with a RAID configuration, the data is actually replicated. So if something happens to one of the hard drives, I can swap it out, and then it'll rebuild the data that was on it. So it has 18 gigs of total disk space, but because of the replication that goes on, there is 13 gigs usable, and of that, for my use, I have partitioned off 9. Did I say gigs? I'm sorry. It's 18 terabytes worth of total space. 6 hard drives at 3 terabytes apiece. With the RAID configuration, obviously, it's got to strip some of that away for the replication, which gives me an effective 13 terabytes worth of space. And of that, I cordoned off 9 terabytes for my use, and then my kids have a couple folders. My fiance has a folder. Everybody has a certain quota they get out of that. And if we need more space, swap out a drive, increase the space. It's not quite that easy, but it's easy to upgrade at that point. So this particular NAS I bought can handle 12 terabyte drives, so that's 6 by 12 or 72. And then on top of that, I can use 2 expansion chassis to increase even more. I won't say I'll never use that much space, but it's going to be a long time before I need to upgrade this thing. So I did go a little bit bigger and a little bit more expensive when I bought it, but it gives me growth going into the future. So with that, and then for now, I leave everything right there.